welcome back to the Circuit Revival. Today on the desk we have got a Nintendo Super Famicon. So this is the Japanese release, so not the same one that they released in Europe and America, which is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which I have mine here. So this is mine from when I was younger. So I've had it for the last 20-something years now. I believe they're virtually the same console, but there's a few differences, which I think might allude to some of the problems we have. So the Super Famicon here was chopped off by a friend. They got it for free. They just said it doesn't work, and they didn't give any more information than that. They said that they've tried to clean the pins using IPA, but it still wouldn't work. So we'll take it open and we'll have a look. So as is always the case, I'm no expert on this. I've never opened up a Super Nintendo or a Super Famicon before. Mine's always worked, so I've never had any need to. You can see a few things. So the first thing that kind of stands out to me is the yellowing that's happened on these. So I'm not sure if it comes across in the camera there, but this is mine. Again, you can see it's still got that kind of bright grey to it, whereas the Super Famicon here has started to take a yellowing approach. Now I know that some people will also conduct a thing called retro brightening to try and bring back that original colour. I think you can possibly see it slightly in this little panel here. It looks the original colour. But as I say, I've never taken these apart, but we'll get it open and we'll see if it works. So to start off with, I said that there is a slight difference that I know that's between the two, and I think that might be part of why this isn't working. So the original Super Nintendo, the UK release, uses an AC adapter. So I'm not sure if it shows up on the camera there, but on the back it says AC in, and I've got my original adapter, and I think it's a 9-volt AC adapter. And the Super Famicon uses DC in. Again, I'm not sure if it's clear on the camera, but there is writing that says DC in. And what I think might have happened is I imagine they possibly tried to plug in their original adapter again, which is why it's not working. From what I've heard, that's like a common problem with these. So I've got here a 9-volt adapter that I've bought just to test this out. So we'll plug it in and see if it works. So that's in, and we'll switch on. No, so as I suspected, I imagine they possibly started off with the wrong power supply. So you can see there should be a light here if this is working. So if I take my original SNES, which you can see here, and I'll plug in my original adapter for it, we can just plug that into the back, and then if we hit the switch, we can see there's a red light there. So on the internet it looks like that's a common problem where people are using the wrong power supplies. So I imagine that's blown something. So I've preempted this just based off of what my friend was saying when they handed it over. And what I've done is I've bought up some fuses for these. So apparently that's the first thing that goes. So I've never opened one of these before, so we'll get it open. If we take a look, there is... Looks like this has already been opened before, actually, because here is a missing screw. And then these top 4 here have, they look like game bits, but the bottom 2 seem to have just some Phillips cross heads in there. So I imagine maybe someone's been in this already. But we'll get it open and we'll see if anything stands out to us. So we'll just start with these game bits and then we'll work our way around. So just lifts up. It looks like it lifts the other way. So we'll turn this over, and this just looks like it's going to come up. I think one of these screws is still just caught in there slightly. So it looks like that game bit piece is still there. So if any of you saw my last video, I'm still a bit sick. You might be able to tell by my voice, but I'm getting a lot better. There we go. So that lid just lifts up. And all looks fairly clean inside. I'm not sure if it shows on the camera, but there's quite a big difference in colour between the top and bottom there. So we'll just move this top panel out of the way for now. And then here we are inside. So there's a broken support there, and it does look like maybe someone's been in this already, because I might be wrong, but this cartridge slot doesn't look factory. Just those washers and that screw just balanced on top doesn't quite look right. And if we just take a quick visual inspection around, we might be able to see. And okay, here we go. So here is that fuse. We'll just zoom in for you. So the power comes in at the back here, and then comes in through this. So this is the fuse that's labelled up F1. So we can give that a quick test to begin with. We'll grab our multimeter and we'll put it in continuity mode and then see whether it beeps. If it doesn't beep, then my suspicion of that blown fuse could well be correct. Now, that might not be the only problem, but it certainly would stop it from turning on. So here's this. We'll put it in the mode that beeps. And it's an audible thing, so when the leads touch, they beep. So if we go from this side of the fuse to this side, we should have a continuous path. And we don't. Yeah, okay, so that fuse has definitely gone. So the first thing we'll do is we'll replace that. And although saying oddly enough, and I don't know whether this is where I've undone it, but this switch is undone. So you can see there's this port here. I don't know whether maybe the person before left it out, but we could have been tricked there anyway. But either way, as you can see, the fuse is definitely not working. So we'll get the board out a bit more and we'll swap that fuse out. So to get this out, it looks like maybe there's just a handful of other screws holding it in place. So they look like they're all crossheads. We'll just take some screws out and see where we get to with this. Okay, so take it off. There is one of these chips looks a bit charred just here. What I'm going to do to make this a bit easier for you guys, I'm just going to switch over to the microscope so that you can see how that looks. And I guess this is the importance of a visual inspection, is it can really start to highlight some points. Okay, so here's that chip that we were just looking at. It could just be surface level, but you can see it's a bit dirty there, which sort of like blends in the rest, but it does look a bit sort of burnt maybe, and those burns could definitely be connecting those two pins. So we'll move this back out of the way, we'll get that fuse switched out, and then we'll see whether it's still the same, see if it works. If it does, we know it's nothing. If not, that's where we'll turn our attention to next. Just as we get, and just the shield is connected, and the shield is as well, and here is our board. Screw game bit has just fallen out somewhere. I don't know whether I've knocked it across, but maybe that's one of the ones from the back that was replaced with an incorrect screw. Okay, so we'll get this fuse out. So my soldering iron's up to temperature. We'll pull this out. We'll swap out and see whether the new fuse makes a difference. So leading up to this, I bought two of these Pico fuses. So it's a Sega Mega and Nintendo 1.5 amp 250 volt axial quick flow fuse. So I've heard that these go a lot, so I got a couple just in case. But we'll get this out and see what difference that makes. Cool. So my soldering iron, I very rarely change the temperature on. I know you should do, but it's quite cheap, so I often find that I don't think the temperature's right anyway. But that looks like it's melting quite nicely, so I'll grab my tweezers and then we'll just try and lift this out. There's one side, and I'll just turn this around, and then there's the other side. So there's our fuse. We'll just quickly double check that that was definitely not working. I'll get my multimeter back again, continuity mode, which as I say is the mode that beeps when the leads touch, and this should not beep. Yeah, perfect. Then if we get one of these new fuses, and I got two just in case something else had caused this to blow in the first place, so that if it blew again I wasn't then stuck. So this should then run through. There we go. And there's our beep. So that fuse works absolutely fine. Obviously it's a bit bigger than the space there, so we need to cut the legs down a bit. So if I just place that roughly there, what I might do is place it in, solder in, and then cut the legs off afterwards. It's probably the awkward way of doing it, but that's what we'll go with. So I'll just use my tweezers to hold it in place. We can melt this solder there. Got all that's tacked down in place, so we'll just snip the ends, add a bit of solder to make sure it's fully secure. There's that leg. We'll do the same with this one. Perfect, and we'll just add a bit more solder just to make sure it's fully in there, and then I might actually just chop that other leg down a touch more just because it's overhanging slightly. Perfect. Excellent, so that's definitely in there. So we should now have a beep here. Perfect. So what we can do is I'll get this card slot for the front, we'll friction fit that back into place. And then I'll make sure my mat is clear, and I think we'll just try turn it on and see whether it now at least powers on. So we'll get this fuse out the way. I think that's everything enough to get it tested. We need to make sure our switch is plugged in, which obviously wasn't before. And we'll just make sure that's in the off position. So as you see with the lid down would be off, so our switch is off there. We'll take our DC supply, so this is the new one that I've got. We'll plug that in and we'll give the switch a go, and hopefully you should see a light here. Perfect. Cool. So we know well the fuse was definitely broken. So what I think I'm going to do is get this just kind of put mounted slightly back into the enclosure, and then I'm going to change the camera around a bit, plug it into the TV and see whether we get anything on the screen. So quickly, just whilst I'm setting up, here's the game I've got, which is the Japanese one. You can tell by the writing on the back. I don't know what the game is. We'll find out hopefully if it works. I think the cartridges do look a little bit different because I don't think the UK ones have these game bits in the front. But we'll just go back to setting up this TV. So here we are all set up. Background my very messy desk. So I've got the Super Famicon plugged in there. I've got a game in. And I've got it plugged in just into AV into the TV here. So what we'll do is we'll switch this and see whether we get anything. So in 3, 2, 1. No. So we have our light but nothing showing. So we'll just try turn it off and on again. Off and on. And still nothing on the TV. And we'll just double check that we are on the right one. So yeah, FAV there. Okay, here we are back underneath the microscope, and we'll give the board a quick clean down and see if it makes any difference. I'm not expecting it will, but this area here definitely doesn't look healthy. Could just be surface level. Okay, so we're just cleaning up that part on the board that looked a bit horrible. I realised that I started cleaning, but my microscope was not recording. So we'll just work our way around this so you can see how horrible. A lot of that's probably just factory flux, but it could also be something different. So that chip there, we'll take a look at what it is online in a second, see if it makes any difference. If we come down here, we'll see the same on these. Just a lot of these chips are just very dirty. And it could be that this dirt is potentially conductive and maybe bridging two pins together that it shouldn't do. Look at that. So a lot of it's probably factory flux, but might not be. Okay, something interesting here. So just as I was cleaning the board, I thought I'd flip it over and clean the other side as well. And we're looking at game cartridge slot. And if I just get this under the microscope here, here is the soldering for the pins. And you can see this one here specifically is clearly not soldered in at all. So when I guessed that this was an aftermarket cartridge slot, I think that's definitely the case, and I'm not sure if it shows up on the screen, but it is also caked in flux. You can see just how this is all here. So I think someone has tried to swap this out. So what we'll do first actually is I'll give this a clean up, and then we'll just solder across all of these pins, because I'm looking at the rest of them actually, and hardly any of them look like they're soldered in. So those ones, okay, are solid, but maybe they're making a bad connection. But there was that one earlier that we saw that definitely is moving. So I'll just continue giving this a clean up because this flux is everywhere. And then we'll add a little bit more of our own flux and then just resolder these points. So it might still not work, so there's a chance this is actually just the wrong connector in general, but it's got the right number of pins, so I'm hoping it's correct. And then we'll give it another go. But I think we should have a connector that runs from like all the way across to here, where that mounting point is, rather than stopping short. Okay. Okay, so I've gone over all of those points, and we're just going to give this clean up and double check them all first of all, because I think there's a few that I think the pads have lifted or have burnt away, because there's definitely a few that feel like they just weren't taking any solder whatsoever. So as you can see here, I'm just cleaning up, and then we'll take a look again. So. So you can see this leg here is not connected to anything. We can see it runs along this trace here. This one looks the same. And this one as well here maybe. And then the other side might be a bit harder to see. Maybe just this one behind the capacitor. This one here. So only a couple on those side. So what I think we'll need to do then is mark out which pin it is and then follow it along the circuit board to where it needs to go to. So we know it's starting on this side here with 1, 2, 3 in. So that's, just clear that up. 1, 2, 3. So that's this leg here. So that leg comes up and connects to this second one in, which runs along here, along where this line is, then comes to this wire here. If we get our multimeter and test between those 2 points, it should connect, but I imagine it's not going to. So I'm just trying to hold this up so you can see, so third pin along, and then it was this wire here. And there is nothing there at all. Just double check it's not the others, and I've measured up wrong. But nothing there. So hopefully, we try go. See if there's any exposure that we can then test against. Might be the next one over. No, okay, so what we might try and do then is just scrape back some of the conformal coating just to make sure, because it looks like we might be able to get a probe on the edge of the wire there. So you see it makes a connection there. But it might be that the actual wire itself on this side has also gone, because that wasn't even making it from not the pin itself. The actual pin as itself. Try and reveal some of the copper. Okay, so I think there might be copper showing there, and then what we can do is do that same test and see if we can find a break, because hopefully we should have a connection from here to here now, which we do. So if we go from here to the wire, which there doesn't seem to be connection. Oh, there we go. So we then go to the pin itself. Okay, so that one does look like it's actually connecting. Intermittently, but it is connecting, which is a bit odd. So, although not connected, that one seems to be doing it. I wonder whether I might be able to get my soldering iron in under the top there and solder it from the top. At least the pin will be connected this side. So we'll double check to that bias. I believe it was this one here, and so that definitely goes to the pin now. We'll double check some of the rest of those. So what I do is I work my way through all of these, testing each one to the via, and then hopefully if we find any others that aren't working. Okay, so I've gone through the rest of those pins, and I think I've got all of them connected up now. There's a few that also looked a bit iffy, but they look like ground pins. So I think what we'll do is we'll just put it back together a bit and then give it another test now and see if that makes a difference. We can plug our AC adapter back in, and then we'll get our power in, and then I'll switch back over to the Messicam. Here we are back over at Messicam, so we're plugged back in. The TV is still on the right channel, I believe. Yep, FAV, so that's on AV. Game's plugged in, we just need to switch it on and see if we have any difference now. No. Try reset it. Absolutely nothing. So it could still be that game cartridge. I'll just have to double check it, but so far that is giving us absolutely nothing. Nope, back to the desk then. Okay, so I did a little bit of tinkering off camera there, and I found something. So I wanted to put it back together to make sure that it wasn't a case of maybe like the pins were too low, because I didn't have the case on there. I didn't know whether maybe the card had to sit at a certain height. So I thought I'd put the lid back on and try it with the lid. And I've tried to put the cart in, and it doesn't like latch into place. It's hard to show, but if I get my Super Nintendo here, and it might show on the camera, so we'll still use this same cart, hopefully it fits in. So there's some like resistance as you push it in. You can see it's sort of like that, and then when you hit the eject, it sort of fires out because that resistance is there. But on this, if I put the cart in, there is no resistance. It doesn't feel like it latches into place. And I'm wondering about that cartridge slot that's in this, because I'm still not convinced it's right. So if we take the lid off of this and we try and put the cart in, what looks like is the case is this eject lever doesn't allow for the cart to actually fit in. It's too low, so it's almost as if this should be taller, which I guess would sort of make sense if that's longer and it's different. So I think this is just the wrong cartridge slot. So I don't think I'm really going to be able to do anything unless we try swapping that out. Now, I reckon I can try maybe with the lid off still, and maybe try and do it so that the cartridge is not pushed all the way down. We'll give that a go and see if it makes any difference, but I do think someone has just put the wrong cartridge slot in this. We're switched off. We're now plugged in. Oh, okay. we did have something there. So the screen has now gone black. It has found something. So I think this cartridge slot is the problem. So we turn it off again. See blue, back on, black. Okay, so what I'll do is I will try position that cartridge in maybe a couple of different heights and see if we get something. So it's definitely doing something now. Okay, I feel like this might be a bit too low. No, back to black screen again. Reset. Still nothing. Okay. Okay, so I push that down, still nothing. Let's try a bit higher up then. Yeah, so because trying to get this out, it's like it's too low and it's really stiff. Okay, we'll try just lightly press it in. Okay, so we're lightly pressed in here. Black screen again. Try a little bit lower. Okay, so that's moved just a little bit. Nothing there. Okay, a little bit further. Black screen again. Okay, so that is something different. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit of Googling, see whether the black screen is a common problem, see whether there's something there. Either way, I think we know we need to swap this cartridge slot out because it clearly isn't right. So if we balance this back in place, do we get anything with how that is? No, because that's not even touching. So yeah, give me 2 seconds, I'll be back and we'll just have a look whether the black screen means anything. And I can't really find any major answers. A lot of them point to making sure that the cartridge slot is soldered down properly, which we already know is a problem. We know that looks like there's some points that are loose. So I think what I need to do is just get a new cartridge slot first. As soon as I've got a new one of those and it actually fits in right, I'll be able to know a bit better. I'm wondering, because I think normally what may happen, because we have these screws that have the washers and stuff, which I feel if we're underneath it would give the cartridge enough height to be up a bit, which would stop it from sort of fouling against this ejector panel here. But because this isn't long enough for the screws to fit through the post, I don't think there's any way of doing that. Unless what I could try is put the screws in place with the washers there, so it lifts the cartridge up, and then on the bottom of the cartridge, the pins are sticking out a fair amount. It's just down to whether those cartridges are high enough. So what I might try do is desolder the cartridge slot, try and see if I can reinstall it a bit higher up and see if I can get it in a position where this connects properly. Because if so, then I can rule out the cartridge slot and the solder points. So I'll do that now. I might try and see if I can go over these solder points one last time and just give it a go. Because if we can get it working, even not in the chassis, then at least we know that's where the problem lies. New connector. Okay, we have something different. we now have just an absolute garbled screen. So we'll try reset. Nope, back to nothing. Back on again. Black screen again. So that tried to do something that time. We'll try reseat this game again, because maybe that's just where the problem lies. And on. No, I don't think it's low enough there. Okay, so that feels like it's biting a bit more. We'll just wait for this to zoom in. We're just back to a black screen. No, so I think I'm just going to have to get a new cartridge slot ordered up for this before we try anything else. But we've made a step in the right direction, I feel. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to order up a new slot from this, so it might take a little while to get here. And then we'll pick this video back up once that's turned up. Okay, so curiosity got the better of me slightly, so I've taken it back apart. Looking online, this is definitely a replacement aftermarket connector. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to take it off, see if I can see any immediate trace damage. And then, if not, I'm going to try and possibly reset it in a bit higher, because maybe I just can't get quite the right point on the cartridge. So I've got my desoldering gun. I'm just going to desolder all these points, hopefully pull this out and we'll have a look. Because I've tested most of the points on the outside. I think they're all right. The difficulty is some of them come under the connector here, so it's hard to see. So I'm just going to run along one by one, desoldering each point, lift it up, and then hopefully we'll see it. Because when looking, there is some kind of scratches in the board and stuff, so I wonder whether the person that installed it could well have scratched something that they shouldn't have done and broken a trace somewhere. So I'll fast forward through this part, but I'm just going to flux this up again, get my desoldering gun. Okay, and we're off. It does look like some pads and stuff came off of it, including some of the wires, so we might need to do some severe trace repair on this, because yeah, looking at this, it looks like some of the actual internal wires between the top and the bottom of the board have gone. I'm hoping a lot of them don't really go anywhere, so I can just run jumpers or they're ground, but so far, yeah, it looks like that was actually quite damaging, which is not great. So the solder came off one side easily, just I think because the legs are so long on this and this is pushed so far through, it was just kind of caught in there. So I'm going to give it a quick clean up and have a look and see if I can see any broken traces So I'll swing over to the microscope again, and then we'll have a quick look with the microscope and then see whether we can see any immediately broken traces. Okay, here we are under the microscope, and you can see where some of those pads have sort of like lifted up and gone. So for example, this end one here, it's completely gone. And this one has, again, they both look like no connect so far. Along with this one, again, another no connect. This one looks like it's about to go, but fortunately looks like it doesn't connect to anything. This one as well, but again, doesn't look like it connects to anything. And this one and this one. This one has gone, but definitely does connect. You can clearly see the break there. So that last one definitely needs connecting, and what I might do for that is just run a cable, or a wire should I say, through this and then spin it around so hopefully it connects to the leg of the pin on both sides. But that one is definitely gone. This one looks like it might be gone, so we'll get our multimeter out and we'll connect that continuity again. So the fact we were getting that black screen makes you think it's trying, it was just a break somewhere. In the mode that beeps again, if we take a look, this first one, continuity around there, and that runs along through to a little scratch here. Let's see. So we don't get it there. That runs, and it would run under the board. It runs to this via here by the looks of things. So we go there, and then to where that scratch is. Doesn't get anything. Is that right? Have I gone to the right place? Let's just double check. Up, round. Oh no, sorry, that's wrong. And it continues up to this via here. So we have connection there, but then if we go to here, there is nothing. So we definitely need a jumper there. Then this one comes in and goes to here. To that one there, sorry. Okay, so that one's fine. And okay, so what I found here might be a problem then, because you can see this one here doesn't look like it connects to anything, but it connects through to this via over here. So it looks like it comes internally into the board. So with these ones, for example here, it might connect to somewhere internally within the board, which is now gone. So that one doesn't seem too bad because it looks like it's got the trace on the bottom side, but I'm not sure if they all do. Just have a look and see whether those ones with the broken traces on both sides, or those broken traces internally, are gone on both sides. So that's there. On one side. This one here, this one on both sides. So I have to connect to make it the rest of it on both sides. So it's just that one. Okay, so that's like in 40. So I'm just going to look at this and see if that connects to anything. Yeah, so I've just had a look. It looks like that does connect to something, that pin 40 there, but I can't quite work out to where, if we can figure that out, we might be able to run a jumper from it. But the rest of these look like we might get away with them. Okay, so what we'll do is I think we'll try and fix that trace that we know is broken to begin with. And then I reckon we'll try and get this cartridge back in, see what it's doing, and then maybe we might need to try and figure out a way of reconnecting some of these cables to where they need to go to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just run some enamel coated wire from here down to this point here. So I'm going to try and scrape this back just a little bit. When you try and solder one side, what often ends up happening is the heat transfers through it all and it ends up taking the other end off. So by being far enough away, should hopefully not do that. So we've got our point here. We got a bit too much solder on my iron there, so I'll just try and clear some of this off. Okay, so I feel like I've tinned the end of that a bit better now, so we'll come in and hopefully this will hold itself. There we go, that's much better. Okay, we're back and I think I've finally got it in place. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to tack one or two of the corners in place. Okay, so they're all soldered on now. So we'll put it back together again, enough just to test it and see whether we have anything different. Okay, so we're back together enough, at least just to test it. So I put it sort of back together, I plug the power in, we'll just see whether our light turns on still. So we still have power. Let's plug into the TV. We'll go to Messy Cam and see whether we have anything different. So as we did before, I'm just going to position the cartridge in slightly. Feels like it's touching. Over to Messy Cam and see whether we get anything different. No, just our black screen. Okay, so I've tried a few different things there, it's not working. So I think there is just overall too much damage that's gone on in between the traces of the board and stuff. If anyone thinks anything different, let me know. But for now, I think we're going to have to call this a no fix, unfortunately. So thank you for joining me. Until next time.